Hey there, welcome to the My Risk Advisor podcast. This podcast is for anyone in the financial planning ecosystem with a focus on life risk insurance. I'm your host, Phil Thompson, Director and Financial Advisor at Sky Wealth, and I've been on a business journey over the last few years going from a struggling holistic advice firm with one staff member, considering packing it all in, to pivot the business now to being one of Australia's leading specialist insurance advice firms with over 7 advisors, 30 team members, and helping hundreds of clients every single year get important insurance cover in place. I am unashamed to say that this podcast is so I can continue to grow and develop as an advisor and a business owner as I interview some incredibly smart individuals. So keep on listening so you can learn alongside me. All right, today with me, I've got Scott Reid, who is the Managing Director and Insurance Advisor at Abbotts Personal Insurance. So, Scott, the reason I reached out to you, wanted to get you on because you've been bank advisor for a long time and you've gone out on your own. I've got a million questions for you, so thank you for coming on and subjecting yourself to scrutiny by myself and so I can learn and get smarter.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Phil. Long time listener, first time caller, I guess. So I listened, actually been listening to the podcast for a long time, well before I started my business. So
cool.
Probably inspired me to, one of the reasons I guess I started my business.
Amazing. All right. So tell me a bit about your journey. Why did you get into advice? Give me a story about your journey.
Yeah. So I guess I've been in advice quite a long time, started pretty young, got in pretty much straight out of uni, doing an advice business, and pretty quickly joined one of the big banks. I was at Commonwealth Bank for a long time as a financial planner. So I think I'm about 12, 13 years or something in now. I've lost count. It's been a long time. So yeah, spent a long time, obviously in that banking environment, primarily as a financial planner. Different roles there. So some focus on insurance and then other times in the more retirement planning space. And then years ago, as we know, we had a lot of turmoil. We had the Royal Commission and everything like that. And the financial planning business at CBA obviously wrapped up and became part of AIA. So I was there for a couple of years, which was good, and probably led me down a path of going more into that insurance only focus, to be honest. So prior to that, it was, more holistic, but that really sparked my decision to focus just on insurance advice. And then about just under 12 months ago, I decided to start my own business, completely crazy, no clients, completely from fresh, which was insane. And a lot of people thought I was insane. But yeah, we did that. So that was called Vivi Protection Advice. And then a few months into Vivi Protection Advice, really, I was looking for referral partners and developed a relationship with Abbotts Group, which is a financial planning / accounting firm here in Perth. And they said they were really looking for someone to work with them to, I guess, develop an insurance business. And they didn't really want to do it anymore. So yeah, that sort of created Abbotts Personal Insurance, which I'm obviously the director of and a co-owner of.
Awesome. I've got heaps of questions about the move to go self-employed, heaps of questions about the partnership with Abbotts and how that all works. But before I do, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, given that you've worked at a bank for 10 plus years and, the banking network just isn't there for advice. We can all talk about, what we disliked about the banking arrangement, but I think as an industry, banks were great at developing young advisors, hiring bucket loads of young advisors and developing and growing them. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinion on what do you feel like we're going to lose as an industry, as a profession, having the banking network not be there anymore? Like, what are those lessons that you learned that you feel like new advisors coming in may struggle to get those lessons that you were able to gather?
Yeah, it's a huge void. I mean, when I think now as a business owner in terms of hiring a planner and taking on the risk of that planner, like that's a big step. So you have to be a pretty developed business to be able to do that. There's not going to be as many of those businesses around. I mean, I know yourself, you're doing that, but there's not that many. Whereas the banks obviously could take on large numbers at a time. It's a huge void of where do we get that development from in young planners? I guess, the bank's providing me with so much. I mean, the biggest thing is probably the compliance. I mean, especially after the Royal Commission, Commonwealth Financial Planning went hard on compliance, but that was, huge for me because I learned to write compliant advice, but without the, I guess, pressure of, needing to write the business to get the money on the table next week kind of thing. Like, you've got so much more security with the bank environment. They can take their time to get the compliance right. They're not a small business, so they can afford to really get that right. So that's a huge thing. And then also just the development in terms of the relationships. Yes, you are obviously given business, but you still got to develop those relationships with your referral partners. So that's probably the two biggest areas that I learned from the banks. And it is hard to see. I don't know, like if I put myself back 10 years, obviously I'd have to be, now you'd be joining a smaller business, which would still obviously present great opportunities, but there's not going to be as many as there were when the banks were hiring.
I mean, I never came through the bank. A lot of my information about the banking is I was very anti-banks, if I'm being honest. But now that they're not there, I can be like, well, there's a huge gap in what there is. As you said, as a young advisor coming in, you've got to join a small business.
Yeah.
There just aren't massive businesses anymore in advice, and great opportunity, but also there's some potential risk if you join the wrong business. Then you've got to navigate that stuff as a younger advisor. The other thing I think that banks did really well is volume. Like it's hard for a small business to provide that volume. I think Sky, we do that fairly well. We've got a high volume business, and it just helps to go. If you don't, convert that one client, actually doesn't have an impact on the overall business. It'll make 0.001% of our turnover. And you can see a large amount of clients and you can get better. If you're doing one meeting a fortnight, you're not going to get as good as if you're doing, 8 meetings a week. There's a difference. And I think banks offered that volume. The small businesses will struggle to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess from the client point of view as well, it is harder for the small businesses to really work in that, I guess, that younger client market where they don't have as much wealth from a financial planning point of view. And then from the insurance point of view, obviously, the commissions are lower. So, financial planning businesses are probably more reluctant to work with that space. Whereas obviously the banks, they didn't mind. They were happy to see.
That's right. And they've got a big time frame. They've got a big time frame for their client journey. And if we capture insurance and then we can capture the mortgages and we can capture,
Correct.
But as a small business, you may not have the freedom of looking at a client journey over 10 years. All right. So now pivot into starting your own business. Now, did you get dropped on your head as a baby to think, I'm going to go start my own risk specialist business and leave a corporate salary? What happened to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the amount of people that said to me, you are stupid, and probably in hindsight, a little too optimistic and naive. But I guess, I always wanted to run my own business at some point. And then I've thought about it for 10 years. And then I guess what led me to go down the insurance only path was I just really started to see what I saw, especially when I was at AIA, was there's a lot of clients who were in that sort of 30s, 40s space who want advice on insurance, but, they didn't necessarily need the advice around your superannuation and investment planning and that sort of stuff because they're paying off their mortgage. They're happy with their industry super fund. They probably don't have the capacity to contribute to, super. So while they could benefit from advice, they probably can't afford the $3 or $4 grand fee for that. But they do need to get insurance and they need to do it now. So I guess I saw that and I was like, man, this is a crazy big opportunity. There's so many clients in that space. That's why I decided I wanted to work there. And, I think I am probably a little bit over optimistic, but I think that you can build a good insurance business. You do have to be patient because obviously on the upfront, dropping to the 60% commission has made it a lot more challenging. But on the flip side, when you look at it from a long-term point of view, it's actually so much better than it was before because you now got 20% trails. So that means it's not so much about churn. You used to obviously back in the day be churn and burn and people would turn clients over in 2 years with different insurance providers. But I think now you can actually build a really good business, but you've obviously got to be patient and you've got to be, it's the initial probably first 2 to 3 years are challenging, particularly for the client.
And obviously I'm being facetious. I love the insurance only businesses. I think insurance only I would recommend it to anyone going out on their own. In fact, I try and convince people who go out on their own who I've, had networks with and we catch up and I'm like, go insurance only, do it. Even established businesses, I'm trying to convince everyone to go insurance only because I think there's huge opportunity in risk only. But I hear your point about, hey, the upfronts do make it difficult. How much kind of a war chest did you build up before going out on your own? Obviously, you disclose as much as you want, but did you think about, I need 12 months worth of expenses saved up because I understand that it's going to take a while? What did that look like for yourself?
Yeah, it was basically, I think, we did have some savings built up to last us for, I think when I first started, I was looking at sort of nearly a year. It was probably less than that in hindsight because the cost of living's just continued to go up and everything like that. But really, I think the ideal person for it would be someone who's living, 25-year-old living at home, no kids. That's not me. So, it's a little bit tougher. But if you can survive on a lower income for a year or two, wow, the opportunity is insane. So, unfortunately, I didn't have, I had to rely on savings and my wife working and that sort of thing as well. But definitely before you go into it, you would probably I would say you would need 12 months because there's cost as well, obviously, with licensing and everything like that. So there's definitely some challenges initially.
And there's a part of it, like, being very like pragmatic. When I started my business, I had no money. I was earning nothing before I started my business. So I was okay earning nothing after my business, and I was young. So it did make it a lot easier. And we still had kids, but I was young and dirt poor anyway. So it didn't make that much of a difference. And that's why, the longer you go on it, in your career and you're building up, expenses in your life, it does become harder to go and take that leap. So it's really brave that you did it, and good on you for doing it. So you started your own business on your own, and then you've merged with Abbotts. How did that come about? You said you were looking at working with them as a referral partner. Did they approach you to bring you into the business? Did you pitch them the idea? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I was looking for referral partners, and just, I guess, through my network, was connected with them. Primarily, they're an accounting firm, and they've got a wealth management business, which is a reasonable size. There's a few planners in that business. They had the insurance book that they hadn't really serviced for quite a while, but an existing client book of insurance clients. So yeah, just through my network, we connected with them. They were really looking for probably a bit more than what I was looking for. So I was looking just for a referral partner. I was really trying to find financial advisors who didn't want to do insurance, but who wanted to refer their business. I wasn't looking to buy a book. And so basically they were wanting a little bit more than that though. So they said, no, we want to actually start a business with you, merge our businesses together. So basically the business that I'd already written went into the new business, and they said, okay, we're going to go 50-50. We'll put our client book in, and then essentially your job is to build this new business. Yeah, it was not what I was sort of looking for, to be honest with you. But in the end, the opportunity was too great. And obviously, when you're doing kids and everything like that, you're like, well, this is a much more financially secure for me because I've basically got a business book now, and now also a referral network.
And, every time these opportunity comes, you basically have two columns. What are the pros and what are the cons? And so help me understand from your point of view, what were the biggest pros list and what were the biggest cons lists?
Yeah, so biggest pros, obviously, like your existing client base. So that gives us immediate cash flow. So all those issues of upfront business are a lot less challenging when you've got that. And then also the referral network. So I think they've got about 20 accountants, 3 financial planners, mortgage broker. So an immediate network of people that I can work with to build the business. And then also, obviously they've got an existing brand. They've been around for 30, 40 years, well known in Perth. So that was the pros. So you can see immediately there's a plan to build a business. The negative was obviously I had to give up what I built only in a short time frame, but you get emotionally attached to that, right? So that was the biggest thing, the emotional attachment, letting go of what I built only a few months ago, but that was definitely the biggest thing. And probably as well, like I built my own sort of brand, I guess, and now this is a different brand and with a slightly different, target market, we're now building a brand within a brand. So yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. And then obviously just the fact that I'm not 100% in control, like I'm pretty much in control. They pretty much let me do what I want, but there's still not that 100% ownership.
Well, you got other shareholders. You've got, even you may have control, but you got responsibility.
Correct. Yeah, and you've got someone to answer to.
And I mean, that was, you already touched on it, but that was one of my questions. How did you feel about giving up your brand? Like if anyone out there has built their own business and they pour like kind of your vision into your brand and you think your logo is so amazing and all of this stuff that we all hold very dearly, how did you go about doing that in terms of like emotionally?
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, it was really hard. That was, and it was even hard. It was hard for my wife who She, invested with me, even though she's not working really in the business, but it was hard for her and it was hard for me. So yeah, even though it was only really, it was probably 6 months old from the time of maybe a little bit older in terms of like my thought bubble. So yeah, it was tough, but in the end it was the right decision and I'm glad I made it because it's pushed what I wanted to build probably 2 or 3 years advance. It's where it's put us 3 years further ahead of where we would be. It's probably the easiest way to describe it.
And help me understand kind of your support network around you as an advisor. So when you started your own business on your own, it was just you, is that right?
Yeah, still just me, really.
Yeah, cool.
So it's pretty tough. Obviously, that's the biggest challenge. We're definitely looking to build that in the fairly short term. So we're still pretty fresh. We're only a few months into the JV, so we definitely want to look to hire. That's probably the next step. We've talked about it, in terms with the other directors. Okay, well, do we outsource? Do we hire locally? There's also obviously support staff in their business, so we might look at sharing. So there's a few different options on the table. At the moment, it's just me. I'm licensed with Bombora, so they give me a bit of support from a licensing point of view, but obviously from admin support and all that sort of stuff, that's definitely to be built, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And so you were previously licensed through Bombora. That wasn't a part of the transition. Yeah, cool. So you've kept the same license.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, so their wealth management business, Abbotts, is self-licensed, but I'm separate. So I'm my own separate business and licensed through Bombora, and that was before. And when I talked to them about the joint venture, they were all on board. They're like, "Yep, they're actually pretty heavy in that space in terms of starting up JVs with existing and financial planning businesses."
Yeah, I'd love to touch on that as well. Was there a conversation about wrapping under their license, given their self-license? And was it you driving hey, I want the support Bombora provides, and so I want to keep tapping into that network?
Yeah.
Or was it just so many things are changing, let's just, reduce one of the changes?
It was never really discussed. Who knows, maybe in the future, but they were quite happy to sort of offload the compliance and the risk and be like, this is your thing, and keep it quite separate. Yeah. So
it makes a lot of sense. Like, we went self-licensed as a business, and it's just a lot of pros and, we'll talk about pros and cons list. There's a lot of pros and cons going self-licensed. And if insurance isn't your core business as a licensee, that's not your core focus, do you want to grow a risk-only business within that licensee? Because there are a lot of things that you just don't need to think about if you're not doing risk.
Yeah, a big part of it for them was offloading the risk, but also offloading the thought, like, just get someone else to do it under our logo. But essentially, it's a separate business that I run, and they just help me with sending clients.
And help me understand, like, projecting forward, what's your, for other new businesses, on your own, how are you thinking about growing a team? Like, you said you had discussion about outsourcing or bringing someone onshore. Like, where are you at the moment with that thinking?
I think about it a lot is, okay, how do we grow? So I think definitely, first of all, will be support, trying to build up, me so that I'm able to see more clients, obviously, and really get me to full capacity first of all. And then, eventually we'll look at obviously building a bit beyond that. Yeah, I say that probably at the moment it's really just focused around that. We haven't, thought too much about hiring an additional planner or anything, and that sort of thing. So,
but even like administration support, do you have like a revenue target you want to be hitting? If Scott's doing 5 meetings a week, okay, then or submitting 5 apps a week or whatever metric you want to do. Is that the way you're thinking when we're talking about like administrative support?
Yeah, I think we definitely have to get to a revenue point where we're all comfortable that this is affordable. We're not going to have a down month where we can't afford to, cover the costs of that. And when I look at the business, obviously I started up last August. So when you look at insurance, obviously you've got trails. So we've got the existing trail from Abbotts, and then obviously my trail that I sort of will start to kick in. So it's a lot easier once you start to get that extra cash flow through the door. So it's just a confidence thing, to be honest. And yeah, we're comfortable. We're confident that we can support that.
Yeah, and that'll be when you first get that ongoing from the client that you wrote, it's kind of like, oh yes, okay, it starts to snowball.
This is why we're here. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're about a month away from that, or maybe two. So yeah, that could be good.
My personal view has actually changed, over the time. I've always thought everyone should start their own business. Like, not everyone, but a lot of people in financial advice. If you're an advisor, you're capable, go and run your own business. At the moment, today, my view is very balanced. Like, it is if you're the right person to run your own business, because it is so much harder than it used to be. 24-year-old me could do it, and I was an idiot then. I'm arguably still an idiot. Yeah, I just think it is on balance much harder than it used to be. But the thing I always talk about when it comes to small business is the emotional roller coaster. The highs are very high and the lows are very low compared to being an employee. How have you gone over, you're very new, just less than 12 months into this thing. How have you gone with the emotional roller coaster that small business is?
Yeah, it's huge. Like, you're 100% right. There's been times where I wanted to give up, particularly sort of before they started the Abbotts venture. And there's times where you're also just like, I don't know, you just lose confidence. You're like, I don't know if we're going to get a client this week. You just think it's not going to happen. And then 3 come in the door. And like, you get 3 random emails or something. And you're like, okay, yeah, this works. But yeah, absolutely. Whereas compared to before, actually, caught up with someone I used to work with, and I was just like, the one thing I missed is just not having, like, I used to just finish work and not worry about it. Yeah, there's a little bit of stress. You got to meet targets or whatever. But if you don't meet the target, well, as long as
you just don't miss out on your bonus, but you still get the base, so whatever.
As long as you're not too bad, like, cause you can sort of coast. Whereas obviously when you're, self-employed, you're like, we need to get the business in the door, otherwise you don't get paid. So it's, that stress is way more. But then on the flip side, when you see it working, when you get clients, like the reward is so much greater. And I think, keep trying to think long term as well. Obviously, that eventual reward is so much greater than, being in the self-employed.
As my business is kind of maturing, and we're still going through highs and still going through lows, definitely. But it's like, at the very beginning, the roller coaster is massive. It's huge ups, huge downs. The downs can sometimes feel like they last a really long time, but then you eventually go up again. As it matures and goes on, it's like those ups and downs kind of level out. Like, you're still going up, you're still going down, but there is a lot less of a feeling like everything's going to blow up if one thing goes wrong. And so I hope that can give you some confidence that, and as you said, Abbotts has kind of stabilized that a bit. It doesn't end. The emotional roller coaster is always there, or still is for me. That's my experience. But it just lessens. It's just dulled a little bit, which is good.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not for everyone. And that I would say it's probably not for at least 50% of people. I think, if you're not willing to go through that emotional roller coaster, then find a good employer.
Yeah, and it just requires great support networks around you. Like, if you got a life partner, making sure that they are on board. Like, how was that conversation with your wife about going doing that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversations. I think she was probably the one that pushed me originally, because I think she was like, I was sort of always talked about it, but never did it. And she was almost just like, just do it already. Like, just like, I'm sick of listening.
Do it and fail. If it fails, go and get a job, and I don't have to hear about it ever again. Is that what? Yeah, good on it.
It was just like, you just do it, because I'm sick of, So I was always quite ambitious. Always wanted to, be more than just an employee. I wanted to start my own thing. I was like, what's the point of me just being an employee for my entire life? So, and so she knew that, and eventually it was just like, you just gotta hurry up and do this. So. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, that's good. I mean, that's the ideal situation, where your partner's just like kicking you forward, forcing you to do it, and being okay with the downside risk. And that was like my experience. Is my wife, still to this day, to be honest, my wife still says, look, if we lose everything, we'll move back with our family, and someone will house us, as long as we've got each other, as long as we've got the kids, who cares? And it still gives me the confidence to reach for higher highs, and also understand that the downside is protected, because at the end of the day, it's all, who cares about money? Like, it's we're all going to die with nothing anyway. So
Yeah, absolutely. I
it's a
think,
little bit morbid.
I would live with so much regret had I not tried. So
Yeah.
even if it still fails, I can go get another job, and we'll be in the same position. So it's, yeah.
And so, in terms of one question I'd love to ask you is about your thinking about marketing your business. So, how did you think about it when you first started? Now, within Abbott, has that marketing, your philosophy around marketing changed, given that you're within a bigger group?
Yeah, so it definitely has changed. I guess first of all, it was very much about trying to build a social media brand, probably similar to yourself, and building an insurance only, obviously focus, trying to really target that younger client group, building the referral partners as well, obviously trying to make strong connections, but primarily, doing a lot of social media. One of my best mates is absolutely killing it in the social media business in terms of mortgage broking side.
Who is it? Give him a shout out.
It's Robbo. Robbo, he's trusted finance. He's got, I don't know, 1 million followers, something like that on TikTok. He's huge.
Yeah, cool. I'll check him out.
Yeah, he's killing it. He's done that in the mortgage broking space. So I saw the power of that. It is more challenging in the insurance advice space because it's the hardest nut to crack in terms of people don't wake up today going, I want to get life insurance. They do wake up, I want to buy a house.
Yeah, everyone wants to buy a house. Insurance is not very sexy.
It's a more challenging game. It's not sexy. That's the hardest part. It's not sexy. How do you make life insurance sexy? Still trying to work that out. Very much when I started was trying to build that brand, that social media brand, and we're still trying to do that. But obviously now moving to Abbotts, there is that referral network. So it's trying to work with the referral partners a lot more, but also the brand is now a brand within a brand. So that comes with its own challenges. They're a professional organization. They've been around for a long time. So, it's trying to build that. I guess, my old brand was probably a little bit younger, a little bit more similar to what yours is, that sort of younger vibe. Whereas now it's trying to build a little bit more professional, but still, have that, insurance focus and that social media focus.
And has there been any... Well, I'll ask a question. Sometimes I try and check my questions. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but you can always just tell me to shut up. But has there been any pushback? You're within a bigger organization, more established, more, proper finance. Has there been any pushback with your, videos on TikTok? Any issues with that?
No. So I think, and they're all on board with it. They're all good with it. And we are working with a marketing consultant as a group to sort of, try and, I guess, identify our client base. And one of the challenges is I've got a different client base to them. Their client base is probably a little bit older. Our target market is younger, but they're well aware of that. So they're absolutely on board. If anything, one of the reasons they sort of wanted to work with me was because I was doing the social media, and that's something they're not great at. So they like that I'm pushing it in the marketing. People are like, oh, well, they love it. So yeah, it's just trying to obviously find time to fit it in when you're delivering advice. Probably in terms of growth, that's where I want to head, is that ultimately I become more someone who's trying to bring in the business, and then other people can deliver. I still might do advice, but not as much, be more of that driving the business through social media and that sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of advice for advisors, either fresh advisors or someone who's been in an advice role for many years, okay, I'll give you categories. Would you advise them to go start their own thing? Let's start with that.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. You go start your own thing. You've got to know what you're getting into. But if you harbor that ambition to build your own thing, then absolutely, for sure.
Sometimes I kind of tell people don't know what you're getting into because ignorance is kind of a bit of bliss. Don't ask too many questions. Just do it. YOLO, who cares?
Yeah. As long as it's you want to build something, and, if you're someone who enjoys 9 to 5, clocking off on the weekends, enjoys, and I wouldn't recommend it for someone who doesn't like stress. But if you're quite resilient and you're ambitious, absolutely.
Me and my wife talk about this capacity to take on stress and burden. And yeah, I feel like I got a high capacity for stress. I sleep like a baby almost every night. Once every 3 years, I don't sleep. My wife is actually worried about me. She's like, you must be extremely stressed if you can't sleep.
Yes. Yeah.
And then advisors, any advice for advisors considering insurance only? We've talked about how, Abbotts didn't want to do insurance anymore. They're kind of like dabbling in it, but obviously wanted to partner with someone. Do you have any advice for advisors considering insurance only? Do you think it's the right move for young advisors?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really a big believer in the specialisation of advice. So either, go into insurance or go into the wealth side. Just in my last 12 months, the amount that I've learned by being an insurance-only advisor is huge. And, I did insurance advice for 10 years prior to that. And I would honestly tell you that I've learned more in that 12 months about insurance than I did for the previous 12 years, which is insane. But the specialization, it just gives you a better client experience, better client outcomes, because with insurance, it's all about, obviously achieving good outcomes with the insurers. And when you spend a significant amount of time, that extra time working with the insurers to get the right outcomes for your clients, you just get good at it. So I think absolutely huge space. And I think insurance, you can build a really good long-term business, but you do have to be a little bit patient, a bit resilient, and able to see the long term. But you can work with clients from a young age and stay with them for a long time.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate all your time. I do have 2 questions, and given that you said you've listened before, you got to know which questions are coming. But when do you get a chance to do your emails?
Oh, I'm pretty bad. Like, I don't really like leaving emails sort of unanswered. So I know that you are meant to sort of do them, check once in the morning, once in the middle of the day, and then at night. But I check them quite regularly. Pretty much through the day.
And I'd be interested to know, because everyone basically does the same thing. And I get we're not super productive, but I don't know, I'm similar. I do it all through the day and I always have. And I don't know if I'll ever stop. I hate having an inbox with lots of stuff, and I get thousands of emails a month, so I've got to get through them. But what's one interesting hobby that you have?
I've got 3 kids. The oldest is 6, so I don't think I've had any hobbies for 6 years. It's pretty full on with the kids, but so I don't really have too many interesting hobbies these days. A lot of time spent with them. I do love my football. I used to play football, and now just to watch them. Fortunately, too old to play.
AFL, obviously, from WA. We're talking about AFL, yeah.
Yeah, my team's coach just got sacked this morning, for context. So,
you're up. You're up next.
No. That might be more stressful than life insurance advice.
Yeah.
So, that's me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Well, and just to finish it off, so you went out on your own after working in a corporate job for over 10 years. You got 3 young kids. Oldest was 5 at the time.
Yeah.
And you decided to go insurance only. So incredible job. Well done for being brave enough to do it. Most people kind of post kids, increased expenses, don't just take the step to do that. So amazing job. You're obviously doing really well, and you'll continue to be incredibly successful in what you're doing. So thanks for coming.
No, thanks so much for having me, Phil. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you think someone else will get value out of it, I'd love it if you could forward it on to them. And as always, we can continue the conversation in the My Risk Advisor Facebook group. All you need to do, open up Facebook and search My Risk Advisor, and I'll see you in there.